So, I mean, tonight's class. And I assume everyone can hear me okay. Um, all right. Oh, here we go again. So I'm just going to wait a few minutes because people are needing to be admitted. So what do I mean when I say cutting the cord? Basically, when I'm saying that, I'm talking about cable. A lot of the cable companies kind of have a stranglehold on um, the pipeline into people's homes, and so the cutting the cord ethos was, you know, um, pe- people were wanting to be able to access TV channels without having to do it through the cable companies, and so that's within the last 5 years. It's there's been a large development in that. Obviously, with Netflix was the first big player offering all kinds of initially content that it licensed to stream, um, and now it's a content creator, and there's a lot of different ones. So let's see. When I talk about cutting the cord, we have to basically what you're talking about is, well, if you get rid of your cable, if you get rid of the cord coming into your house, well, then how am I going to get this content in? Like, how am I able to access these things? So there's OTA, over the air. There's two main types, right? OTA, over the air, which we'll cover tonight, which has basically to do with an antenna. There's large antennas on the top of Mount Mansfield, um, and that send out signals for all the networks and PBS and things. And so with a good enough, strong enough digital over the air antenna, and we'll look at a couple of different types tonight, and then a website that really can help with selecting an antenna. In Vermont, the terrain is such that it makes it a little more difficult at times. Like if you live down, between two mountains, it makes it a lot more difficult to get a signal. But if you're able to, and you should be, Antenna Web, which we'll look at tonight, which is a website, can be helpful in determining if you would be able to get a signal. So that's over the air, which is, like I said, an antenna, which is all a digital signal now. There's also over the top, which basically is over the internet. And when we talk about that, we're talking about TV streaming, right? The hardware for the streaming, like the Fire Stick and Roku and all these things you've probably heard about. The streaming services that provide the content, well, that provide the sort of organization and licensing of the content. The streaming channels. So, of course, if you're getting your content through the internet, one big question is, um, what about local channels? This was a large problem. It's gotten a little bit better because, for example, YouTube TV has the local Burlington channels on it, so that is better. But still, some of the streaming services don't include the local channels. That's where the over-the-air antenna can come in. If you need it, it depends on the streaming service you use. Some of the larger names, bigger players in the content streaming world are YouTube TV, Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, and these kind of um, apps. They can be called apps, sometimes software, but basically are almost like networks. What used to be considered a network like ABC, NBC, CBS, but they exist in the cloud. They're just a series of folders holding old shows, and also some newer shows. And so basically getting these services or apps is allows you to basically you're licensing the content, and it gives you access to it. So what we're talking about tonight, if you cut a cord, in order to do that, you need an internet provider, internet service provider. to be able to do that. So starting out, of course, some in the audience might remember the early or were actually early remote controls. The first remote controls, as some of us remember fondly, was ourselves getting up out of the, we were talking about it tonight, my wife and I were talking about the times where we just sat there and watched things that we didn't care to watch in the slightest, but the risk reward equation favored staying under the warm blanket and not getting up to change the channel. Because there probably wasn't anything else for that great on anyway. But so yes, so some of us are early TV remote controls. Here's another 4 remotes. But that evolved and changed over time. And now it's a little easier, right? So in the early days, TV programming, the entirety of a Monday could be there like in a small little chunk, right? You could see a whole day of programming that you would have access to on a channel on, like that. So there just weren't nearly as many channels in the early days. The reality of what's going on now is that people are rapidly, their entertainment habits are rapidly changing. And that a lot of times, so millennials are the largest generation of people, I think, at this point, and their buying habits push trends or push economic models, right? And so they are the people who between 2014 and 2019 basically stopped watching traditional TV, especially in its traditional channels. This slide says that their TV consumption dropped by almost 10 hours a week, which I would say is great, watching less TV, roughly an hour and 25 minutes per day. Unfortunately, that time was probably taken up with and replaced with, and some added, of like watching, to me, slightly inane TikTok videos and stuff. But that's what people have moved to, are using their apps, sending videos, selfies, looking through other people's pictures and things. And then they're still watching TV shows, but that's not the only, really, in the earlier days, the only kind of conduit of information outside your home to be able to get in, right, was what? Mail, the radio, and then TV. And so in terms of being able to see what other people look like, what things look like in other places, all that kind of stuff, TV was it. But now, of course, it's just one of many, many sort of conduits into the home of entertainment. And the one that is sort of predominant in a lot of ways, the one that people have on them, are smart devices, right? Cell phones, tablets, and such. Anyway, so because of the changing habits of all people, but especially younger people, there were, people were willing to take a chance and spend money, like Netflix and YouTube TV and things, which is Google basically, to start investing in creating these, like I said, basically the equivalent of a network, as far as the distribution is concerned, but over the internet, right? Through the web, accessing it through a browser. So traditional TV viewing by 18 to 24-year-olds was going down 15, 20% a year over year. And since 2014, it's gone down by well over 50%, which, of course, if your business model is keeping these people entertained, there's a lot of disruption in the space, I guess I should say. So according to the Nielsen ratings, on average, Americans have 189 cable TV channels. So that would be channels available to them in their cable TV subscription, but they only watch around 17, which, if you do have cable TV, you probably know that, where it seems like you're flipping on the remote, you're flipping forever, can't find anything. And yet you're flipping forever because there's so many channels. So how can there be so many channels and nothing of value to watch? So it's such an, that's an odd conundrum, right? So what are some ways that you could change that? Well, one way was sort of an a la carte TV subscription model, which Sling and some of the earlier adopters did. So here's those two terms again that I mentioned: the over-the-air TV, which is you access with an antenna, or over-the-top TV, which is accessed through the internet. Some of the larger players or sort of content provider subscription services in the internet version are HBO Now. HBO Max is actually the streaming service. HBO Max, Netflix, of course, sports, ESPN and the NFL and college sports drives a lot of what decisions made in TV. YouTube TV. Sling was an early one. Sling is one of the less expensive options. It's $30 a month to subscribe to Sling. So this is not my bill, but why did I cut the cord? The reason I stopped subscribing to cable was that it's just so expensive, and I had access to good internet service provider for a decent price, and I wanted that control. But now, it's getting more expensive. The TV providers that we subscribe, my family, which is me, my wife, and 2 children, are YouTube TV, Disney Plus, and Netflix, which adds up. But that's more than enough, I would say. But they go up every so often, so it gets close to, I'm not sure what cable bills are these days, but it gets up there to, I'd say, paying $85 a month for all of those. So how does the data get into your house, right? So there's cable, and earlier I left out satellite. There's also satellite services, right, that have been around for a long time. DirecTV and Dish, which with those you have a dish and then a channel box. You have the cable companies, which means you'd have a cable modem and you would have a router going off of that for the internet, and then the over-the-air. Does anybody have any comments or questions that they have been itching to ask? I've been talking to my colleagues who live around Waterbury, and most of them have Comcast, right? So that makes it a little harder if that's, the best option. I don't know if there are other internet. I know there are other internet providers, is my understanding, in the area, but no one that I had spoken with were using any of them, and most of them had Comcast, and they were all very interested in the subject as well, because it's getting expensive to have those bundles. Okay, so I'll keep going here. So for the in order to get the data, the content into your house and consumable, right? So you need to have the signal, the data coming in over some sort of cable pipe, the equivalent of the pipeline into your house, and then you need a way to descramble the signal and display it on something. So at the beginning of that, you have an internet service provider who's providing the internet into your house that you will use to then use one of these content providers through a browser to access. So, right, so that's the internet service provider. That's who gives you your internet, who you pay each month to get your internet. Then there are different so to say, I'll use myself for example. So I have Burlington Telecom. It costs $55 a month, and I have 150 megabits per second or whatever it is. So it's pretty fast. So with that, then on top of that, then I would subscribe to, say, YouTube TV. I used to have Sling and I liked it pretty good, but I do a lot of work in interface design. And so YouTube TV just works the best in terms of the interface and kind of the human computer sort of element in its usability. So that's why, and it also, you know, has all the channels that I mean, there's a lot of channels that we don't watch, and we don't watch that much TV, but they're all the channels that we do want, it tends to have. Sling is a less expensive option. Hulu, there's a lot of different of these subscription services. Let me see here. Let's see, I'm gonna slide this over. So each of the different streaming services, most of them will have different plans so that you can build. So if you want more British drama, you can have a couple of channels that the other one doesn't have. If you want, you know, sports, there's another one. So there is some of that a la carte element to some of these plans, especially Sling. All right, so that is basically setting us up for, you know, the internet service provider, right? Just go through again. So that you have an ISP, someone providing you the internet, and then you would get a subscription service that provides basically the interface and all the content behind it. Right now, if you're using cable, you're getting both of those things from your cable company. This here are some resources dealing with cord cutters and the antenna website I was talking about earlier. I'm going to change over right here and do a different share. Just one quick second. All right. So say you're interested in this course told you a few things, but you'd like to investigate more. There is a website called Cord Cutters News that has a lot of things about basically what it is, cord cutting, and then also like if there's deals for, say, an antenna or a deal for a streaming thing, or like here Amazon Fire Stick, you know, there's lots of that kind of thing. And I'll recommend this to the Beginner's Guide to Cord Cutting 2020. It's on this Cord Cutters News website. You know, check out those kind of things. When you're dealing with establishing your monthly cost, you know, determining the content that you want. We'll look at this again in a bit. Okay, so then another website that's important if you're interested in going and trying to get an over-the-air antenna and you want to do some things is this website, Antenna Web. Okay, they also have a cord cutting guide, which is great. You know, much more in depth than I will be able to go into here tonight. You know, there's all these different links that they've included, and I will try to include some of these links. I'll vet them and go through and see which ones I really like, and I'll add them to the web page for this tech class. Some of these links as well, along with the video. But this is called Antenna Web. What this allows you to do is it has good information like the cord cutting guide, but it also allows you, I'm going to just, it allows you to look up if your address, like it'll recommend a certain antenna and this kind of thing. Let's see. So I just put down an address in Burlington, and it's showing me which type of antenna would pick up these different channels, right? So it's showing yellow for all these stations here, red, blue, and then there's different, a different type of antenna goes with a different color here. So I would probably be looking at, I would want the yellow. And if, you know, so that's other than the buying the antenna, that's a free option. So you would need to have the antenna, you know, place it somewhere where it picked up a good signal. But for example, this is a way to get the network channels with local news and weather and everything, as well as PBS. And there's more than one PBS channel. For example, a lot of these channels have more than one instance, as it were, on the, you know, so like here, yeah, these different PBS ones. So anyway, so this is called Antenna Web. If you're interested in exploring more about maybe getting a high def antenna and putting it up, this is the website basically for that. It gives you antenna information, types of antennas, everything. Oh, here's yellow. So the one that would work best for me was the small multi-directional, attractive design. So then it'll send you somewhere you can get them. I've found that the old antennas work great too, right? You don't necessarily need a futuristic looking fancy antenna to work necessarily. If you already have an antenna mounted on your house or already using an antenna, you might be able to use this website and place it somewhere better, just see what channels you should be able to get. Okay. So that was for over the air channels using antennas. This Antenna Web I recommend. Now we'll look at a few of the different subscription services that are possible if you don't have a cable company, right, providing your content and you are doing it a different way. So for example, some of the things that I use are, and I assume you guys can see this, right? Can someone speak up? And you can see the website I'm on, right? The Antenna Web.
Yep.
Good. Just I check every once in a while because I'd be horrible if I was, yeah, talking over a blank screen. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I can't really fully tell from my end 100%. So okay, thank you. Hopefully this is helpful information. These websites are really good. So now I'm going to show the interface and what they look like for a couple of subscription services that I belong to. At my house, I have a Mac Mini in my living room, which is actually what I'm teaching on right now. So, and I have an extension, a USB extension cord plugged into a headphones that I'm talking from. And then I'm looking at this on my large smart TV, and I teach a lot of classes with this setup and have a trackpad and keyboard on a Bluetooth setup. But it works really well for that. And it also works really well for sort of cutting the cord in that way, in that really we use the Mac Mini as kind of the entertainment hub of the house. And then also the smart TV. The way that the smart TV, if you get a smart TV, it actually has these apps on it as well. Some of you might have accessed content that way before. But if you have an internet connection to your smart TV and then have a subscription, say to Netflix, you can have the Netflix app there. You open it up and then you sign in and you sort of watch the content that way. So this one right here is YouTube TV. You manage your account with so basically my account through YouTube TV is linked to a Gmail account, which is an email. So you would have to In order to get YouTube TV, you would have to get a Gmail account if you don't have one. So that could be something that doesn't matter to some people. To other people, they don't want to get any more accounts, you know. A Gmail is pretty good though. But anyway, so you have to have basically it's a Google account in the way you log in, and it's through your Gmail account. And so
Do you have to watch it live, or is
no,
it like recorded, or?
this is the big one for YouTube TV too. It has unlimited recording. So it has unlimited recording. And so, you know, back in the, people still use them, but there were DVRs, right? Where you would be able to record stuff and it would fill up because it was a smaller hard drive. With YouTube TV, you can watch it live, right? So you can go through and do that, or you can set it up to record shows. So here, for example, here are my most recent recordings. Basically the news, Wolf Blitzer, the News Hour, I watch that. Like, so I'm usually very busy until my kids go to bed. And then after they're in bed and stuff, I can come in here. And if I don't have to teach or do different things, I basically don't really watch live TV so much. But I just will go to this, and there'll be one or two shows from the day that are more interesting than others. And then I tend to watch the weekend political shows and stuff like that. But anyway, so you can set these up to record in as many as you want.
Where is it saving them?
So basically there are huge server farms for Vermont. I'm not sure where it would be, where they're big, basically huge, what the equivalent of hard drives. So it's saving it on computers outside of my house. So for example, my wife and I have two sons, one of which is not allowed to, you know, sign in and do it himself. He just turned 8, but I have a 14-year-old who does. And so we all have our own kind of dashboard or accounts, and you can have up to 6 accounts or instances sort of saved. So you can set different settings. But anyway, all that is saved. That little stuff are saved on cookies, those preferences and choices on cookies on my hard drive probably, and theirs. But like that was the thing that allowed for them to record so much content and so many shows, is that they basically have, I think, all this streaming from master files wherever they are. And instead of having to record that a new version of that episode, it probably just sets like you know, it's recorded to the master anyway, and that really eliminates storage space and things. But it's not filling up like my computer or anything like that.
So does it go out to the cloud, or are you saying it's just a pointer back to where it originally got it?
It's in the cloud, but I think it's a pointer back to the master one video instead of like creating a new version, right? So it's in the cloud. It's on YouTube's streaming servers wherever they are.
So can you watch live?
Oh yeah. So
Okay.
I'll go to live right
I
here.
like live.
Oh yes, absolutely. So you can go live, right? Right on here, and then
from your Max Advantage forecast to features from your hometown.
So yep, you can definitely watch live. Let me stop this. So you can definitely watch live.
Okay.
But I was trying to say, it has YouTube TV at least, and I don't want to shill for Google necessarily because I don't want them to own everything. But in terms of, they have made it so that you can definitely, it's seamless and very easy to record whatever you want. And there are some limitations. I like to be able to record it because it does record it and you can skip through commercials. And that's what I like using because I don't like watching commercials. So, so anyway, so that's one. So this one's Netflix. Most people have that, but this is what it looks like. They have a really slick and nice design. So they have a lot of things on it.
What if we always said as a
I think that's usually what my wife a lot of times watches stuff on. like the Queen's Gambit's about chess playing women. Anyway, so that's Netflix.
Morning, Bakers. Welcome to your very
People pretty much know a lot about that. Disney Plus is pretty much for kids. The thing about Disney Plus, I don't want Disney to own the split up, and get their share of the world with Google and Apple, but they do have a good streaming service if anyone in your family enjoys these. So one thing I've liked about it is that my 8-year-old is pretty inquisitive, and my 14-year-old loves like the National Geographic documentaries. And so, it's sort of like they came for the Disney and Pixar and Marvel and Star Wars, and they're leaving with a lot of National Geographic, which is nice because one of the great things about streaming content now is that there's so many great nature documentaries over the last 15 years and farther back, but there's been an explosion of them. And if you like that kind of stuff, and the cameras have gotten so sharp and things that especially I found during the pandemic, it's really nice, they're able to make them, very compelling type shows, but then just being sort of submerged into a jungle and watching that kind of stuff, I don't know, it's nice. So that is, thank God that Disney Plus does have National Geographic as well, or it would be too much fighting. Even though a lot of the National Geographic is actually sort of animals fighting for mates, but so then Hulu is another one. I don't have Hulu. My wife actually is a writer, and she teaches at UVM, and she has a series of thrillers. I guess they're calling them thrillers. But signed a deal with Hulu a few months ago. So hopefully she'll have a show on Hulu. So if that happens, we'll get it. It's less expensive than YouTube TV, and it's pretty popular. So there's also Sling, which I was talking about. This one's less expensive. So what Sling does is it's less expensive, and this is the more of the RLUC, pick your own. They have Sling Blue and Sling Orange. And then you can add sports, and you can add this and that. So I'll just give you this website too. This is Sling. So for $30, you can have all the main channels that people watch, I think. And then you have to see if it has the local channels. When I had Sling, they did not have Burlington, South Burlington. So I had an antenna in Sling. But that is a good option, like, a high definition antenna set in a good place, and then Sling, and $30 a month isn't too bad. There's also HBO Max. So if you like HBO, they have a large, back catalog and a lot of new shows that are coming out. It's $15 a month like it always was. So HBO is not inexpensive. It was always sort of that premium channel, add-on thing, which it still is somewhat, but it has a lot of content. They also, one thing I'll show, if you have kids, they stream a lot of the Miyazaki animated movies like My Neighbor Totoro. Acorn TV, which is British, shows British shows. It's a little less expensive, but if you really like those kind, there are different content providers that the YouTube TV and the Hulu and the Sling have multiple channels, right? So there are multiple channels within their lineup. Acorn TV would be like one of those channels, for example. But you can subscribe to some of those that are just sort of like that kind of are trying to meet kind of a niche audience and survive there. And there's a few others in terms of that. But that's a lot of the larger streaming services and a couple of the channels. Like I said, HBO Max, it would be considered a channel, but it's a sort of a premium channel. And then Netflix is a larger than a channel. It's more of a provider, and YouTube TV was the one that you saw here. So let me open up my slides again.
Is
Yes.
YouTube like Sling where you pick and choose, or it's a package and you just get everything? Or
YouTube is more of a package. You can, like anything, you can have the sort of stripped down skinny version, and then you can add things. So you can always add more, but they try to have a sort of, the lowest. They want to have an option for people where they don't have to spend too much. And then you can add on top of that. But one of the reasons people tried to move away from cable, that is happening, unfortunately, it seems like, is services like YouTube TV. They are getting a lot of those hangers on channels to sort of pad out the channel list, but really there's only a certain number that people probably really watch a lot. So, and it's going up in price, but you can, like I said, you can tailor it somewhat to your taste, but there's always going to be the baseline price. Okay.
Could you tell us about Amazon TV, please?
So Amazon Prime, yes. Let me go to that. So I'm going to stop the share here, and I'm going to go back to the internet. Right here. Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime already, right, for shipping and things, you also get, where in the world? I had it until recently. Oh, I got to sign in. Oh, here it is, Prime Video. So it's similar to Netflix in a lot of ways. It has a lot of videos here. So it's Amazon in Prime Video. I do not have an Amazon Prime account. If I did, most of the stuff in Prime Video would be free. And there's a lot of good shows on there. Good Omens is really good. There's a lot of stuff on here, and they're also creating their own content. Amazon Prime is making a Lord of the Rings big series and some things like that. I don't know if I recommend getting Prime just for the video. There's probably maybe better services, but it does have a lot of films. But if you already have Prime, you should take advantage of it. If there's a show you really want on Prime, it could be worth it. You can get Prime by the year, which has a somewhat of a discount. You can also do it month by month, which is nice. And that is something with all these services. For example, we were traveling last year and weren't going to be watching YouTube TV, or I think, for a couple months. So I could just cancel it and then start it again and not have to pay for those 2 months, which is nice. It does make it easy to jump around that way. Now, if you sign up for a year, it's a little bit of savings, and then you can't do it as easily. But like, for example, for Prime, you could try it for a month. So you can sign up month to month. I think it's $12.99. And then if you like it, there's lots of also sort of discounts for people who are in various positions. I think seniors, maybe, I'm not sure, students, whatever, to get less expensive Amazon Prime. And then you could get the shows and music with it.
Thank you.
Yes, but it looks like this, and there's a good bit of stuff. It's tough because the companies with the most money are the ones who are able to make these things, and they're taking it, anyway, you can't really go local with this stuff. You know what I mean? So let me go back to,
Can I ask a question about internet?
yes.
Up in the area near the library, I'm up in the hills, and my internet is through Fairpoint, through my phone with a
Okay.
router.
Yes.
So could I still, and I just didn't know where Fairpoint fit in with some of this stuff.
So you get your internet through Fairpoint,
Yes,
and you have a router. So basically you have a router for your internet.
yes,
So you're a perfect candidate, I would think, for this, as long as your service is fast enough.
yeah, that's what I don't know. Okay.
But you don't have to watch. So I'll just say this, there's a lot of hype about, streaming and HD quality and all this. You don't have to do all that. I lived a long time, watching very sort of, things don't have to be 4K and 2K, this and that. So if your service is, fast enough for one person to be streaming, this is the kind of thing that would be a really, I think, a good way to go for you, or look into for sure, because that is the way to save money. The one,
What speed would be minimum?
the minimum, they recommend pretty high. They say 25, but I know for a lot of things that's not realistic. So, do you know what speed you get?
I get 3 meg.
You might have some buffering with that. They would probably say that's not enough, but you can try for a month or something. You know what I mean? And I had service like that. Believe it or not, I lived in San Francisco a while back and had the worst internet service I've ever had in my life, which you wouldn't think. But I had 3 meg, I think, and we used to call it getting ahead. So we'd be watching a show or something with my kids were really young, or my first child, I guess, was pretty young. And buffering's not a fun way to go, but if it's not too often, because the thing is, if you have an internet service and then have to get cable in addition to that, that's just so expensive. So if you have an an internet service provider like a Fairpoint, that is a good situation, I think, to try. But here's the thing too, though, and this can be a difficult thing. So most of these, if you don't have a smart TV, you'll have to stream it over the internet, right? So if you do have a smart TV, it's not too hard to hook up, like Netflix on it or YouTube TV. Most people these days, still have a computer that has the computer monitor and things in a separate room, and you want this stuff to show over your television. So a smart television probably is necessary. It's not that hard to connect a computer to a television, but that would be a class for a different night. I will say this though, if you come out of this and you find a possible solution or two, please, you can email me and I can give advice, after this class. I am the tech librarian at Waterbury. And so, I can help try to figure out something that might work. But basically, if you have, like here's some antennas. We're running close to on time, I think. Yeah. So my understanding is a lot of people have Comcast, and someone can speak up if this is the case. For some places where Comcast is deemed the fastest. And then I don't know if it's less expensive to get this through packaging cable as well, or but if there are other internet options and people are wanting to use those, this is a very viable option. Here's some antennas, older ones to newer ones. You can put them in, in the attic or in the somewhere in your house that's facing the direction of the antennas, which I showed you a website, Antenna Web, that will help you figure that out. These are some of like the boxes that you can get. Well, I should say that as well. You don't necessarily need to have a computer or a smart TV either. And I should have, the reason that that came up was because it was needing to segue into this, I'm sure. So you can also get various things to plug into a TV, like a Roku, a Fire Stick, or would plug into a computer to make it easier. So like here's a Fire TV Recast, watch and record live TV everywhere. So that's pretty expensive though. That's basically an over-the-air DVR for like Amazon Prime. Let's see. So you can access it through, devices like these, but that's becoming less and less necessary.
I have a pretty basic question. How do I know
Yes.
if my TV is a smart TV? I inherited it. I just hooked it up. My old one is gone. How do I know if it's a smart TV?
So in order to try to figure out if yours is a smart TV and you don't have any packaging or anything, on the remote, do you have the remote control that came
Yes.
with it? Is
And
there
I
a
have-
button that you push and like different apps come up on the bottom or different windows?
I'll have to look. Okay, I'll just write it down for now.
So it would have something like a Netflix or Google Play button on the remote.
Okay.
The remote button might say Smart Hub.
It might say smart as well. Like I have a Sony TV I'm looking, it doesn't say smart necessarily, but it has like a Netflix button, a Google Play button. And then when I hit discover, all the different apps that have been installed come up. So
Cool. I'll take a look when we're done. I don't want to hold you up.
okay.
Yep.
But that's an important question for everybody because that would save, a step and a little money. So these are different streaming services and some of the features. These are updating all the time. Some of this data is a little dated, but it's pretty close. These are all the different devices that the different services work on. More and more are working on all of them all the time. So pretty much most of them work on most things, but not all, of course, because there are still some companies battling over the stuff. These monthly costs have gone up. These are not currently extremely accurate. YouTube TV is about $60 a month now. I would say all of these have gone up about $5 to $10. These are a lot of the different channels, right? So now a lot of them used to be channels that were on traditional television who've now moved over to this kind of streaming digital world. That's just an example of what, so these, some of these, like say, news organizations or local channels will also have apps that you can install. So for example, there's a certain certain broadcast news channel that you like the best. You could install the app for just ABC News, for example. And then when you open that up, it'll probably have, all the latest, broadcasts from ABC News and the stories chopped up into smaller stories and all kinds of things. That's one of the things these apps allow for. You can get a little bit more detailed in terms of what you're targeting or showing your audience. One big thing, not quite as much in Vermont, but a lot of places, is how to watch sports, NFL games. Depending on how big of a fan you are, there are a lot of games on the local channels, right? Usually in market teams, the Patriots, Jets, Giants, Bills. It's not bad watching the Bills this year. They're winning some games. but there's also an NFL channel on YouTube TV, for example. You can get added sports or even football or college sports add-ons. And then there's, if you're really like it, there's things like these: NBA League Pass, NHL TV, NFL TV, where you can pay even more. And then you have the app that goes through, say, the NFL. And for example, if for theirs, I think it's $179 a year, and you get all out of market games, and you can stream them or watch them the minute they're done broadcasting or something. So you can't, it'll be against the copyright if it's streaming while it's showing in the local market, but as soon as it's over, you can have access. And there's different things that, I mean, any way they think they can squeeze money out of the, people's interests, they try to create a product for.
I heard that YouTube dropped Nessun this year. They had them last year. It's, do you know if that's happening?
They dropped who?
Nessun, New England Sport Network.
Oh, they dropped it recently.
Yeah.
It's mildly frustrating, because they have the Atlantic Coast Conference games, like the games that no other channel wants to show. Anyway, a couple of times I wanted to see.
Yeah, they also have the Bruins and the Celtics. And
Yeah, the
stuff.
Bruins and Celtics and all that. They're going to have to get it again for local, I would think. I don't know what's going on with that. Yeah. But that's not good. So, for example, that's a very good point. Say there's a deal breaker. One of the things, it doesn't drive all your decisions, but a lot of them is, can I get the Celtics and Bruins and Patriots games through this? And if the answer is no, that's not the one for you. That's for sure. So,
yeah, my son-in-law just dropped them, and he's going with another. I think he's going to Hulu now.
Is he? He's going to Hulu.
Yeah.
Yep. The interface won't be the same, but if the content is better, that's what counts, for sure. So that is why, yeah, identify the 3 or 4 main things that you want out of your service, because some of them do have different things, and based on the deals they've made, and it's constantly changing, deal making. Let me see. So this, someone's trying to get in here. So, so this is claiming that the number of devices being used, right? 5 to 10 megabits per second for light use. Emails, web browsing, social media, SD video streaming. So when I was talking earlier about, the videos don't have to be 2K and 1080p, all these different things that mean very extremely high resolution images, because the larger the resolution of the video that you're watching, the larger the file size, right? The larger the file size, the larger the cable or the pipeline or whatever has to be. SD video streaming for one device, I'd say 3 megabits per second would work. For sure. One of the things, and let me show talk about this for a second. So one of the things that all of the streaming sites do, including YouTube, if you upload a video, or Vimeo, or any site pretty much any site that does a little process, an encoding process, actually it's called transcoding. I used to do this for a living, and I still do on a lot of projects. But if you're exporting out a video that's to be viewed on, you don't know what devices, right? So it could be streamed on everything from gigabit per second, a gigabyte streaming, huge monitor, all the way to a cell phone in Mumbai, right? Well, you're going to want a different sized version of that video playing on the, those two different devices. The pipeline are very different sizes and all in between. So what you do is you transcode a video when you're done editing it, and it creates 7, I think, different versions of the video. And what a YouTube TV or Netflix does is when you click on the video to start watching it, sometimes people will notice it'll go a little bit pixelated or different things. Well, what that's doing is it's determining what size video it should stream to you based on, a number of parameters. And so that the good news is if you have not like 3 megabits per second connection, you'll probably be watching a video made for mobile devices, but it doesn't matter as long as it looks decent. And so that's a really good thing about transcoding is that, and it's also a good thing about the power and how good editing software and the encoding algorithms are now. They can make these files that used to be really big so tiny now that you should be able to stream, which is, like I said, a good thing. So that's all the slides I have about this. There's some resources that I had mentioned, and I will add some to the website, the library website. There's a page announcing this streaming session, where I will put the recording and some clickable links dealing with things that I'd mentioned during this time. But now I want to take some questions if people have any. I guess I will just let people speak up. Does anybody have a question?
I'm gonna listen, but in case people get into long discussions, I'm gonna say thank you very, very much.
Hopefully, was it helpful?
Oh, yeah, and I'm gonna stay with you, but
Oh, good.
I
Okay.
want to have to leave
Yep.
in the middle of a long conversation about sports, which I'm not interested in.
We
so-
won't do that, but I understand. Okay.
So I have a question. So if you go
Please.
to that antenna web and
Yes.
you put your zip code in your town and it says no stations were found.
Did you get that?
Yeah. Yeah, I put in Moortown and it says no stations were found for the location you entered. So I guess that means that's not an option.
It might, well, either you're in the shadow or it can't find Moortown. It probably happens sometimes, right? Where something will think you're in Boston or somewhere. But I guess you could be in a shadow. You know what I mean? Because it's basically radio waves coming off of a big antenna. And so if there's basically a mountain between you and there,
Yeah, I'm on a mountain.
on the backside of a mountain from Camel's Hump, or
Just an antenna gets all kinds of stations.
it should.
It's funny because if I put in Waterbury, it gets up to 12 channels.
I don't think it's recognizing Moortown. I think that, so thank you for bringing that up. If you put in your town and it's saying, you can't get any, put the town that's closest by that is a little bigger, I guess. Sometimes that can happen. 12 is pretty good. I thought it would be pretty good out there because you're pretty close. Okay,
It
does
says
it,
12, but it only shows 4. Interesting.
you could, try it out. There's also things to boost the signal, but if it's only showing 4, I would say that's not because it's too far away, that's something else is blocking. But, they're more accurate the more times they've been used in a place, I guess. I don't know.
How
Okay,
does
I
it
just-
work on a second TV if your main TV is a smart TV, but your second TV is not?
How do you get it on there?
Yeah.
So for that, you're going to have to get something that can stream things. So there's a number of devices that can do that. They're called streaming devices, something like that. It's almost at this point, though, a smart TV will probably cost the same. Well, it depends. There are less expensive ones. But basically you need something. If it's not the smart TV part is basically the equivalent of a computer. So you need some sort of computery thing to be able to, you know, change to access the internet, I guess I should say.
So if you had your second TV was also a smart TV, would you bring them in off the same service, or would you need a second service as well?
Nope. That would all be, you could stream as much as you want from the one service on those TVs.
Okay.
Yep. So say you have 4 TVs and you get YouTube TV. You can sign into all those TVs with YouTube, and there can be 4 different streams going at once, up to 6 in your house. So that's a nice thing too. I mean, really, different people can set whatever they want in it to record and then just go back to it and watch it when they want, which is a nice thing. But it has been going up a little. Any other questions?
I just wanted to make a statement about Fairpoint, because we do have them as a
Okay.
service provider, and we are on YouTube TV. We had 7 and we bumped it up to 15, but we were doing okay on 7. There was a deal going on where you could get, the 15 for about the same price. So that's what we've been living with.
But you didn't pull your hair out at 7.
No, we didn't, but there were times when we were using multiple devices where it would slow down a little.
Right. So the hierarchy of the house sort of establishes itself a little at that time.
Yeah, you got it.
But it's better to avoid that if possible, I found. So, but that is good. Thank you. So we have one empirical bit of evidence here about someone using Fairpoint in the near Waterbury area, and the 7 megabits per second service seemed adequate.
That's right. Yep.
We don't have any yet about the 3, but from your feelings, 3 probably would have been a little slow.
Yeah, I believe that would have been too small. Yeah.
3's probably a challenge, but hopefully if 7 is not that much more expensive, or if there's a deal. I mean, I think people are pretty sympathetic right now to, people needing to be able to access the outside world. So it might be a good time to check and see if your internet service provider does have any deals. If you can talk to them and say, can I get a little faster service? Or, checking out a competitor if there is one. That's always, you never know if you don't ask. We got a new, for us, used car recently, called our insurance. We're going to add it to our insurance. And because of that sort of change, got a couple of other insurance carriers to give us quotes. And we found one that was, far less expensive than what we'd been paying on the one car before, but we just had inertia and not, called every year and sort of, reestablish that connection. So if that's the case with you in your cable situation, maybe this can be a motivator to see if you can get a better deal. Like I said, the recording of this, let me make sure it recorded. Yep. I'm going to stop it right